Induced demand is a concept that is extremely important for a proper planning of city development. It is based on the idea that increasing the supply of a certain product leads to higher consumption. For example, to create a massive demand for electric cars, we first had to create them and the charging infrastructure. And if the demand for a product or service is already existing, it can disappear mostly if a more convenient alternative appears. For example, music CDs have lost popularity not because they were no longer produced, but because there was a more convenient alternative like Spotify or YouTube Music. In case of urban mobility, this means that dealing with the traffic jams by simple road widening doesn't lead to the expected improvement in the longer terms. And here is how it works. Let's imagine a normal city street with 4 traffic lanes which are regularly stuck in a congestion. Something clearly needs to be done with this. And the most traditional and obvious way out is, of course, to make more lanes for cars. At the first glance, this seems very logical. If there is not enough space for cars on the street, just give them more space and the problem will be solved. But here is what happens next. Right after the road is widened, the situation will really improve. The same number of cars will have more space and traffic will flow smoother. But this will not last long because the street widening will stimulate to change the transportation behavior those people who didn't use cars previously. Gradually, they will realize that driving a car has become more convenient and faster and will change their commuting behavior. For example, this is Anna. She used to walk to her job, but after all the trees on her street were cut down and sidewalk narrowed, it became very uncomfortable and unpleasant. At the same time, public transportation has not become more convenient or predictable, while there was more space on the road for cars. Therefore, after some hesitation and doubt, Anna finally got a driver's license and bought a car. So there you have one more car on the street. And this is Michael. He used to get to the work by bike, but after the road was widened, cars began to drive faster and cycling became much more dangerous. After another accident when he was nearly hit by a driver, Michael decided that it had become too risky and also started driving his car on a daily basis. And that's one more car on the street. And then one more and one more and one more and many more. It is important to understand that the mode of transportation that people choose isn't constant but changes depending on the situation. In our case, so many people will gradually switch to cars that the initial benefit of widening the road will come to zero and traffic jams will return to the same level or even worse. This usually happens within a few years. And if you try to widen the road for cars again, if there is a space for it of course, the cycle will just repeat itself, but it will lead to the same result, through temporary relief to an even bigger problem. In essence, trying to solve congestion by widening roads is like trying to solve obesity buying a bigger pants. Moreover, while the demand for goods can be met by increasing their production, this will not work with the transportation, cause streets cannot be expanded endlessly. That's why it is necessary to introduce more efficient forms of urban mobility and create convenient alternatives to private cars commuting. And then people will always choose the best option. And there are examples around the world of cities that not only do not increase street capacity for cars, but also dismantle existing infrastructure. For example, in 2005, the capital of South Korea, Seoul, removed a highway in the city center and restored a river with the embankments on its place. As a result, the number of cars transiting through the city center decreased. Instead of this, people started to use buses and the subway more, with an average of almost 500,000 extra trips per day. In addition, this transformation has stimulated economic activity in the area and created thousands of new jobs. And this project was so successful that it became an area of study for city officials from other countries such as Japan and the United States. So, this is how induced demand works in transportation planning.